My friends, welcome to this episode of the Outdoor Gear Review. I hope you all are doing well. For this outdoor news episode, I have another tragic case to share with you all. This one involves a man from Texas who, on a whim, decided to go to California to hike, to climb Mount Whitney. That's right, everybody, the exact same location that I just put up a news story about, Mount Whitney. Do you remember that story? That involved two individuals with no outdoor experience going out and purchasing over 100 pounds of gear each. Then they try to climb Mount Whitney. As you can imagine, things did not go well. Make sure to check out that news story. It is something else. The search for Taylor came to a tragic end on January 4th, 2025, around 1 p.m. when search and rescue teams located his body, approximately half a mile northwest of the Upper Boy Scout Lake, at an elevation of 12,000 feet. When it comes to Taylor, he was a young man. He was only 29 years old, and he was from San Antonio, Texas. Come late December 2024, he decided to climb Mount Whitney on a whim. Just in case you don't know this, Mount Whitney stands a very impressive 14,505 feet. And obviously, with it being December, we're talking about winter time conditions, brutal conditions. On December 30th, he began his trek up towards Mount Whitney. Do keep in mind that he had very limited outdoor experience, virtually no mountaineering experience at all. More on these points in just a moment. A few days after he set out for his trip, his family and loved ones reported him missing. On January 2nd, 2025, a search mission was launched involving a handful of agencies. We're talking about a lot of people here, folks. The Inyo County Sheriff's Office, the Inyo County Search and Rescue, the Army National Guard, the California Highway Patrol Air Operations. They had high altitude imaging planes, the Mono County SAR team, and the China Lake Mountain Rescue Group. Think about all of the resources involved in this one search. Look at how many groups were involved here. Unfortunately, this story has a very tragic ending. Taylor was located roughly 1 week after the search began for him. While the cause of death has not been released yet, we know for a fact that he was ill prepared for this adventure. What we know is that he was facing extremely challenging conditions. We're talking about severe weather conditions, including high winds, freezing temperatures, and obviously snow. We also know that Taylor had very limited outdoor experience. We're talking about hiking, we're talking about mountaineering. Both of these aspects played a role in his death. And because of his lack of experience, we can also factor in a lack of being prepared with proper gear, clothing, and also skills. With that being said, friends and family did express confusion about Taylor's plan to hike Mount Whitney because it was on a whim and it was also out of character for this individual. One of his friends has gone on record and stated, quote, "A lot of us don't understand what made him get into his car and drive to Mount Whitney to do this on a whim. He is such a smart kid, really smart, and it's hard to understand what he was thinking." It really is important to know that proper adventuring involves adequate preparation. It is critical, and it goes far beyond simply choosing a trail. Experienced hikers understand the saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. That is a mantra that I have stated over and over and over again for years on this channel. With that being said, here are a few key points to consider before going out on any adventure. First off, you have to honestly evaluate your own personal skills. We're talking about physical and mental. Are you capable of doing this adventure realistically? Physically, we're talking about stamina, we're talking about strength, endurance. Can you handle the trip that you're about to go out on? You need to consider the trip, the terrain, the distance, the potential weather conditions. Make sure that you understand and can utilize basic survival techniques such as navigation, water filtration, first aid. You need to know how to use the right gear at the right time. You need to understand clothing and layering systems. You need to know not to sweat in even cool conditions. You know the saying, you sweat, you die. Additionally, you need to be prepared for the stresses of the adventure. And I'm talking about mentally, not just physically, but mentally. When your adventure gets tough, when it's no longer fun, are you able to continue to push through? Do you have the ability to do so? Can you handle the weather conditions as they change? Let's say a storm comes in. Can you handle it? And I'm not just talking about with your gear, with your physicality, but I'm talking about mentally. The essentials for hiking preparation involve: let someone know your plan, the exact plan, and have it worked out the steps that are going to be followed if you do not return at a set time. Before you head out on your trip, you need to make sure that you have a checklist and check off each component component before you leave as you pack them. If you've never made a checklist before, make sure to get it checked by someone who actually knows what they're doing before you head out. Make sure that that list is complete. You need to have the appropriate footwear, insulation layers, a map, a compass, a GPS. You need the proper communication equipment, sufficient water, purification methods, calorie-dense foods, sun protection, emergency shelter, and so on. Before you head out, make sure to check the weather, the forecast, the potential conditions that you can face. If you cannot find that information online, call a ranger station. When it comes to this individual, he went out on a whim. He was spontaneous. And while there's nothing wrong with this, you do have to plan properly. The dangers of being spontaneous is this, especially when it comes to the outdoors. It's easier to get lost. It's easier not to pack what you need. It's easy not to check out the conditions, the weather forecasts, and so on. At the same time, it is very easy to underestimate unexpected hazards. My advice before heading out on any adventure is this: take your time to plan, don't rush into things, especially when you're facing adverse weather conditions. Taylor did not take the time that was needed to properly plan for this trip. He did it on a whim, and again, it cost him his life. Before you head out on any trip, it's important to set up the proper safe framework that will allow you to enjoy your adventure and for you to come home when it's over. A well-planned hike is a confident hike. By the way, folks, I apologize for the wind. It is bitterly cold and windy today. We're talking about 16 degrees Fahrenheit with winds at 20 miles an hour, so it's something else. Anyways, my friends, when it comes to this situation here, my heart goes out to this individual's friends and family. Again, this is a case of a death that did not have to happen. It should not have happened. If he was properly prepared, if he took time to plan out this trip, he could have done it safely, and he could be home right now with his friends and family. But that's not the case. That's not what happened. I've said this before, and I will say it again. There's nothing wrong with going out on an adventure. Yes, accidents do happen. That's okay. Accidents happen. And when they happen, people need help. Being ill-prepared, this is not okay. That is a choice. Someone's making a decision not to be prepared. They're putting their lives at risk, and they're putting the lives of the search and rescue team members at risk as well. At the same time, they're wasting valuable resources from their own communities, or even outside communities. The point of doing this series is in hope that it reaches a large amount of people and gets them to think before they head out on a trip. Adventuring's okay. Accidents are okay. They're gonna happen. But being ill-prepared, being foolhardy, that's not okay. And it can cost you your life. It can cost the lives of others. We've seen this happen. Take Mount Charleston for an example. 9 individuals went up to that mountain ill-prepared. All of them seriously injured. All of them had to be rescued. Then we heard from a law enforcement personnel that one of the rescuers who went up to Mount Charleston passed away trying to save someone up there. Everyone watching this video needs to let that sink in. You know what I mean? Think about it. Anyways, folks, I am done for now. Unfortunately, this story has a tragic outcome, and ultimately, it could have been prevented. I want to take a second and thank everyone for making this series so successful and so popular. It really is important that we spread the word about these cases to prevent other cases from happening. Everyone, take care, be well, strength and honor. Safe adventuring, folks.